Economic Day. I appreciate everybody taking the time out of their busy schedules to come and participate in this event. I really hope that at the end of our event, the goal is that you really take away some knowledge and some tidbits that you can apply to your daily business practices. The first thing that we're going to do on the agenda is I have Michael Lanahan. He's the Director of Business and Community Solutions with the Missouri Department of Economic Development. He is going to be discussing with these gentlemen up here, Dan Ruda and Derek Smith, and we've got Nathan Graham on the line as well. We're going to be talking about Opportunity Zone resources and discussing the best practices and challenges across the state. So without further ado, go ahead and turn it over to Michael. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And can everybody hear me? Microphone good? Awesome. Thank you guys for being here this morning. And I am excited to be here. I'll give you a quick overview of what we're going to do. Introduce our panelists, both near on either side of me and far. Nathan, let me try adjusting this. It sounds like there's some feedback. Is that a little better?
It's probably not you. It's probably
got it. Okay. So we're here to talk about opportunity zones. Some folks are well versed in opportunity zones and know what they are. Some folks aren't as familiar. So what we're going to do is to give a quick overview. We're going to jump into what's going on across the state, some best practices, as well as some challenges in developments across opportunity zones. So without further ado, let me introduce our all-star cast of panelists. Better? Hey, thank you, Jen. All right, to my right is Dan Ruda. So Dan is a graduate of Kansas State University and a CPA, or recovering CPA, it sounds like. Moved to the Branson area in 1985 as CFO and CEO for Impact Management, Inc., a diverse resort development company. In the years Dan has been in Branson, he's established himself as a prominent member of both the business and civic community. Before 1985, while he was in Kansas and working with both a large regional accounting firm and one of the Big Eight, Dan specialized in feasibility studies, cash flow projections, business accounting, and computer auditing. Since 1989, Dan has been a partner of the Thousand Hills Golf Resort complexes, entities encompassing resort, residential, commercial, and golf development, design, construction, operation, and marketing of whole ownership condominiums and the hospitality industry through the area's premier nightly rental program. Dan is a board member of the Ozark Mountain Bank and an advisory board member for the Boys and Girls Club. Glad to have Dan here. To my left is Derek Smith, also of the Branson area, although he's frequently up here in Springfield. Derek serves as a partner at BKD, CPAs and Advisors, where he's worked for over 10 years. Derek is the CPA and earned his Bachelor of Science in Accounting, his Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and Management, and Master of Accounting degrees at Truman State University. Derek's based in Branson and advises clients on a variety of tax-related issues, including opportunity zones, where he's really been at the forefront with thought leadership and guidance there. And last but certainly not least, our 21st century guest joining virtually is Nathan Graham. Nathan is the Director of Commercial Services at Realtors Property Resource, with the main task of working creatively within the Realtor family to deliver the most valuable research and analysis tools for commercial members. Nathan draws on his experience in the association world, having worked for the Wilmington Regional Association of Realtors and the North San Diego County Association of Realtors, managing their commercial division, among other roles. Nathan earned his MBA and Executive MBA through a joint program with the University of North Carolina at Wilmington and the Institute of Business Studies in Moscow, and joined the RPR commercial team in April of 2015. In my role in the Department of Economic Development, I serve as Director of Business and Community Solutions, which is the division that houses many of the state's core economic development programs, ranging from business retention and expansion to redevelopment tools to international trade expertise and a host of many other things. So let me just give a quick overview of opportunity zones for the benefit of those who may not be as familiar, and then we'll turn it over with a couple of discussion prompts for our panelists. After that, Nathan's going to share an exciting resource that he's been working on from the tech side, and then we'll have some time for Q&A from the audience. So opportunity zones. Back in late 2017, Congress passed and the President signed into law the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which, amongst other major changes, included this Opportunity Zone program, a program really designed to spur development in economically distressed areas across the country. This was a small portion tucked into a very large bill. And when folks came across it, including in the Department of Economic Development in early 2018, we realized, oh man, we've got to get something together to make sure that there's a process in place, these zones get designated, and it's used for good to really spur some great development. So what these zones are, these zones are designated census tracts nominated by the governor and designated by the Department of Treasury, U.S. Department of Treasury, to provide capital gains tax benefits for investments in those zones. Those investments can be in real estate or businesses and equity there. It's similar to like a universal 1031 swap, if you will, although Derek can touch on that much more eloquently than I. So with that, Missouri had the chance to nominate 161 census tracts in communities across the state as opportunity zones. Those were all approved by the U.S. Treasury, and now they're in full effect. So the tax benefits for investments in this zone, this program is really designed to get capital injected into these areas and keep it there for a long time. The longer it's there, the more tax advantage you get. The advantages focus on capital gains. So after 5 years, capital gains invested in the zones get a 10% reduction on deferred capital gains. After over 7 years of investment, that goes up to a 15% decrease. And then the primary benefit, after 10 years invested, the basis of that investment is actually stepped up to the fair market value at the time of sale or exchange. So potentially major benefits that could spur some major developments across the state. So that's a quick overview. Derek, Dan, do you have anything to add to the overview before we jump into a few of the questions?
I think the other tax benefit is you get a deferral if you have that capital gain. That's another benefit. I think you touched on that, but just to maybe highlight that aspect of it, you don't have to pay tax on that capital gain. Now you get to defer it until you either sell it or later date.
Good deal. So I'll jump off with the first question. So first off, could you guys share a little bit about what you do day to day and your role with regard to opportunity zones, how you've been involved? And Dan, you want to kick it off?
So I'm from the Branson area. Until 2008, we did a lot of, was involved in the Branson Landing Project, and we did a lot of second homes, vacation homes, and investment properties. That changed dramatically in 2008 in Branson, as well as the rest of the country, and has not, I'd say Branson's one of the tailing recoveries, still hasn't been a lot, but obviously with anything, real estate is, it gets old. So one of the benefits is there hasn't been a lot of construction in the last 12 years in that area, almost particularly in the housing, both single family and multifamily. So the opportunity zone kind of plays into that, so we're doing that. So in addition to that, after 2008, we're still in the development business. It's kind of been reinvented, but we also now, after that, started purchasing commercial contracts, elected medical paper, timeshare, travel club, some cemetery paper around the country. So that's what we do.
I'm not a recovering CPA. I haven't got to the recovering stage yet, so Dan's got me beat on that. But CPA with BKD, and I spend a lot of my time right now with opportunity zones, investments, clients that are looking to either place dollars investments or helping clients set up funds or helping them find strategies and ways to find an extra use for the capital stack through opportunity zones and how that can benefit both them as the developer or owner and those investors that will look to place that capital with that capital stack investment in an opportunity zone. We spent a great deal of time educating people. I will say just a quick side note, when this law came out, I read it, honestly did read the 400 plus pages multiple times. I know that makes me a tax geek, but when we came across the opportunity zones, I picked up the phone to several people across Southwest Missouri, other states, and throughout the state. And Mr. Ruda is one of the few that picked up the phone and didn't think I was an idiot and listened to me. And because of Dan's forethought and his team's dedication, they put forth, a couple applications and to DED, and they are single-handedly the reason why we have an opportunity zone in Branson, because of him taking a chance on that and taking a chance on me and getting an application put in and approved. So one of the nice things I think as a result of that we didn't know was that whole census tract got designated as an opportunity zone because Dan put in an application. So he won't tell you that, but I will tell you. He did actually pick up the phone and talk to me about those way back when nobody had an idea of what an OZ fund really even was. So
I think I'll add to that. So, as we said, there's 100 plus of them in the state, and it's not only in the state, it's around the country. I don't know how many thousands there are, but they're there, and the key that you have to remember is there's a limited number. There won't be more. And as Michael said, they're there for a long term, and the tax benefits are meaningful, and it makes good deals great deals. So.
And we are seeing deals get done that there's been pieces in the New York Times, Washington Post saying that this is only, deals that would have been done anyways. And I'm here to tell you that's not accurate. It's not accurate in the Midwest. It's not accurate in the state of Missouri. These are deals that would not have gotten done in these locations without this incentive. Dan's 100% right. It's making good deals even better. And it's expanding that capital stack and making deals, not as thin as they would have been, have more capital, and, making them make more sense. So I would throw that in there as well. This is my op-ed piece on the opportunity zones.
All right, next question. What best practices have you seen in opportunity zone development from your perspective? Whether that's from your own examples in Missouri or elsewhere across the country?
Here we go.
Yes.
I'd say some of the best practices, it has to make sense. The deal has to make sense. The opportunity zone plays a great tax incentive to get people to make a decision they wouldn't otherwise do or make that decision, but it has to make sense. The deal needs to work, and it needs to work for everybody. The last thing that the drafters of this legislation, it was the only piece in the legislation that had bipartisan support, but those deals need to make sense. You're not going to go into an opportunity zone and fund investment or real estate deal just because of the tax incentives. I think the other piece that we're learning is there's a lot of people that have money in an opportunity zone fund that are trying to find good deals. So if you have clients or customers that have great locations or have good deals they want to do, there's plenty of money to be had there. It's trying to marry those two groups together. And I think a best practice there is get your good clients with other good clients, other good people like the Dan Rudas of the world that have good deals and put good deals together. There's a lot of funds out there that are preaching their opportunity zone fund benefit that have a lot of loads and a lot of fees and maybe don't really have a well thought out plan. So that would be, I think, my best practice is get with good people and do good deals. And also get good advice. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of questions still. Every day I get 5 phone calls in opportunity zones throughout our firm footprint, prospects, clients, those people that have questions. Still a lot of misinformation out there. Make sure you're educated and get good advisors, people, attorneys, CPAs that know what these opportunity zones are really about.
I might add to that, if it's contrary to how you might think, is don't go look for the opportunity zone necessarily first. You might think of it is if you have a good deal, and as Michael said on the onset, it's not only real estate, but also businesses, is if you have a good deal, then go look and see if you can put it in an opportunity zone, particularly the business side, which has been under communicated, in my opinion. It's been more talked about real estate only. The biggest benefactor, which is, to my knowledge, I know in Missouri it's not been done much yet. I can't speak nationally. But the business, putting an operating business inside of it, and particularly one that's going to be successful, is where the big money happens. So when you hear about opportunity zones today, I think the initial attraction is for the tax deferral, as Derek and Michael have said. But if you look at it from an investor standpoint, and you need to look at it from your clients, to me, it's about the long-term tax benefits. Not having what it is, it's similar to a 1031, where at the end of it, you don't have to roll it again. You just take it, and you put the money in your bank, and you say, thank you very much. So that is the big, but it's long-term, and it's out there. But if you have particularly wealthy and or significant and sophisticated clients, they will understand that. And I think maybe also, which is also underappreciated, the people that are starting to think about wealth transfer and estate planning.
One of the things that I'd add from the public sector perspective, I get some visibility in projects going on in Southwest Missouri, in Kansas City, St. Louis, elsewhere across the state. Some of the strongest attributes I've seen are coordination, making sure that there is a talented team of folks from the investor side, from the advisor side, be that tax, legal, real estate, from the community and economic development side as well, to really get all the stakeholders together. There's one of the, I won't say shortcomings of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, but one of the tough parts is there aren't clear decision lanes written after the zones actually got designated. So each community has to figure out, and I know that many of you are geographically based. You have areas that you focus on in particular. There's not really a clear point person of who's going to run it. It's different in each community, but someone needs to get all the players to the table and figure out who's doing what. The other best practice, once those players are together, is intentionality. What's the vision? If you're coming at this with a focus on investment in a specific geographic area, there has to be a tangible, coherent vision of what that should be. Like Dan said, the deal has to make sense. It has to be something that makes sense for that area, for that community. And once that vision is together, that enables a targeted marketing plan to investors who would be interested in that, whether it's folks who are looking for social impact or the traditional financial return. There are different investors out there, whether they're outside of the community, outside of Missouri, or even folks there from somewhat of a crowdsourcing perspective. So those are some of the best practices that I'm seeing across the state and across the country. And outside Kansas City in particular, they're doing some neat things. But I'm happy to have that conversation later. But without further ado, anything else on best practices, gentlemen?
No, I think we're good.
Great. Next, what challenges have you seen that make development in opportunity zones difficult? And what are some of the potential solutions and innovations that may help tackle them?
I guess initially the code came out and we didn't have regulations and they were late in coming out. What was beneficial about the regulations, there's been two sets, is they are favorable. They made it easier. So one of the big things is if you have to create a capital gains, so your clients, right away when a client calls you or you are involved in a transaction and it precipitates a capital gain, is that it's a different type of structure than a 1031. So you need to educate yourself well enough if that client, customer might have an appetite for going into it. You might be able to be involved in another transaction. That was made easier by the regulations in that if you're involved, for example, in an LLC, all the members don't have to reinvest. It can come out and that particular or individual owner can reinvest in an opportunity zone. So as I think Derek specifically said, finding capable, competent people that can answer most of the questions. Derek did. It's taken a lot of time, and I can tell you that he and his firm they've spent a lot of time in keeping up and educating themselves so that you can answer the questions easily and directly so you don't get off base and screw it up. Because obviously, just like most things in the tax law, if you miss it and you get disqualified, it's going to be a bad issue for both you and your customers.
There's no curing it. If you screw it up, you get a penalty and you're out. And that's, you can't make that up. You can't get square with that if that happens. I'd say, to add on to Dan, some challenges are a lot of misinformation or lack of information, people not understanding the rules. We get a lot of questions of people who say, I've got a piece of property, your clients have a piece of property, it's in an opportunity zone. What do I do to go take advantage of that? I think that's a challenge because if you have existing property, there's limitations on your ability to benefit from that. You can and should. If you've got a good deal you want to have happen in that property and it's already in a zone, there's a right way to do that. But that's, I think, a challenge that we've seen. Mentioned one of the other challenges is lack of good deals, people putting good deals together because this needs to work and it needs to provide that economic benefit. And Dan's 100% right. The biggest bang for the buck economically is businesses. One of the things that people were confused on is, well, if I've got my property and I lease it to a business, do they have to own it or can I lease it? And while you as the landlord, if it's an existing building or facility, you won't necessarily have a benefit to leasing to an opportunity zone business, but that opportunity zone business has a huge benefit and can fill up vacant property for your clients in an opportunity zone because that's a desirable location for them. As Dan mentioned, if you've got a good deal or a business you're starting, look to see if it makes sense in an opportunity zone. I think the other challenge is there's no uniformity to these deals. That's one of the things for folks like me and Dan that make it easier because then we can make the structure fit the deal and the investors and the location and all those types of things. I think the other challenge is people think, well, you're in an opportunity zone, so you don't need any other incentives. And I'm here to tell you, if the deal worked with just opportunity zones, it would be a completely different deal. These areas will still need other incentives. I think there's a lot of misinformation across the country about that. Folks are reading and hearing what a great deal these are and what benefits they provide. And so we're seeing some pullback from some local, city, county level incentives that would have been available, saying, well, you're in an opportunity zone, you don't need these benefits now. Tax abatements, TIFs, those types of things still are essential in that capital stack. While that opportunity zone fund money can help, you still need other incentives in a lot of places. Maybe not in some, but in a lot of places you still need other incentives to make those deals work.
And on that note, regarding incentives, from DED, when we take a look at this, we see this as an additional tool in the toolbox, in addition to the state's economic development toolkit. And several of our programs where there is some purview, opportunity zones receive more favorable treatment because, or like higher scoring and higher priority and things like that. Because the goal of this Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and what we want to see from the state is really successful development in the most economically distressed areas of our state, those designated zones. So we are excited to partner with you, with developers, with your clients to really bring about some transformative change. That's a win-win-win for all parties involved.
Like one of the things that, because you're not going to get all the answers today, as Derek said, it's 400 and some pages. But the point that I really encourage all of you is to educate yourself, and because this is a long-term deal. The tax deferral is relatively short. It's up through, I believe, 26. But the benefit of going ahead and investing is for almost 30 years. So I encourage all of you to educate yourself. It is, if you can defer and not have to pay tax on appreciation for almost 30 years, think what an advantage that is, okay? And what it does to the return on investments. I don't know that I know exactly, in my more layman's, so don't hold me to this, in my more layman's quick penciling, the benefit of that, not having to pay tax on that gain, takes the, in a real estate deal I'm talking about, but I would presume that it'd go in the business, just to give you some motivation to educate yourself, can take the return up plus or minus 50% over the long term, not having to pay tax on that gain. So that's a big motivation, and it's worthwhile to educate yourself, and you'll be considered a hero if you take that to your clients.
So the last question I have for the panel before we turn it over to Nathan is, from your perspective, what is the best thing that realtors can do to help spark opportunity zone development?
I'd say that is do what you always do. Help your clients find the best location for what they're trying to do. In some cases, an opportunity zone won't fit, but as Dan has stated and we talked about, Michael said, educate yourselves, know what the benefits of these are, listen to your clients, which is what you do day in and day out every day, and find a location if it fits the client's needs, or suggest a location, or like you always do, be that intermediary to introduce them to folks you know that have that knowledge base that can help educate them, and just do what you do every day and help your clients identify that as a chance to increase that investment or increase the capital for that investment. If your clients own property with an opportunity zone, that's great. You can help them as a marketing tool. That the opportunity zone location is a marketable strategy for that. I won't say that it's not worth double, although we are seeing a lot of folks that are trying to grab onto part of that opportunity zone value up front as existing real estate or landowners. You still have to be realistic about the value of that property as it sits in an unimproved state. So I think those are the things you can do from my perspective.
One additional little nugget, it's all about thinking about things differently. That's what makes you successful, is when you can look at something and try to put it together a different way. One of the things you might go back through, just kind of look the last several years of deals that didn't get done because they didn't quite have the return. If you can pull those back out, they might make sense today if you can put them in an opportunity zone. So it gives you a chance to go back and re-communicate with that client and or look at a deal and put it together.
And from my perspective, I'd say educate yourself, like Dan said. This is kind of an overview and primer, but there are folks out there with experience, with insight, who know the rules. Get familiar with those and have those conversations. And number two, don't limit the conversations to just the advisors. Talk to folks amongst your communities, the other folks who can really help spur some of these big projects and developments, and figure out who should be at the table and how the pieces can go together to make this happen. So we'll do Q&A in a minute, but first, Nathan Graham, he has an exciting tech resource that he's going to talk about. After this, we'll open it up for Q&A for Derek, for Dan, for Nathan, whatever you guys want to ask. So Nathan, all yours, good sir.
Can you hear us, Nathan?
What did you say is the deadline for development?
The question was, while we're waiting on Nathan, is when's the deadline for the development? You have up and through the end of the opportunity zone designation technically to get certain aspects of it, but there's deadlines in periodically through. If you want the deferral piece, it's got to be before 2026. If you want the step up, the full step up, the investment has to be done for the 15% by the end of December 31st of this year. And then once those designation goes away, it's going to be an act of Congress to bring that program back.
Could you restate the last part? Because I'm not sure a lot of people understand what you just stated about getting the full 15% deferral.
The question was,
Deadline.
could you restate the deadline about the full 15% step up and deferral? And the way this works is if I get an opportunity zone fund set up before the end of this year and my investment placed, there's some conversation about whether you just have to have it in an opportunity zone fund or you have to have a deal. And we could talk about that at length, but you have to have that opportunity zone fund at a minimum set up and funded before December 31st of 19 to get the potential full benefit of the 15% step up. But let's say you don't have that happen until next year, you would still be eligible for the 5-year, the 10%, and you still get the deferral. But in order to get the full tax-free appreciation, you have to hold it for 10 years. That 10-year period starts when I fund my Opportunity Zone Fund investment. That's one of the things that was in the regulations. It doesn't matter when my deal gets placed in service for the 10-year time period. If I have a deal that I put my Opportunity Zone Fund money in today, my 10-year clock starts today. Now, I have other requirements that I have to meet, like if I buy land and I build a hotel, I've got to have that built within 31 months roughly in order to take advantage of that. So there's multiple due dates within this complex law, but the main ones to both questions are, you know, to get the full benefit of the step up, you have to get it done by the end of this year, but don't let that drive your deal because it's an extra 5% and that's not immaterial, but it's not worth doing a bad deal over or rushing something. You can still get the 5-year 10%, and if nothing else, you'll get deferral. So if I do my deal in 2023, I still get to defer my tax until 2026, and I can still get my step up. I don't know if Nathan's ready yet or not.
Nathan, are you hearing us? He's hearing us, so that's not a problem.
Maybe we take one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a website that identifies the 161 tracks? And
Yes, so DED's website, if you just Google DED Opportunity Zones, it'll have that comprehensive list as well as some maps of where those tracks are across the state.
And if you're looking for a resource that's not just specific to Missouri, the CDFI fund has a map, and I would encourage you to only use that map. That is the official map. There's lots of maps when you Google them, and we found errors in those maps that the CDFI fund map trumps any other map.
You want to define CDFI for a lot of people in the audience who don't know what that means.
Community Development Fund Incorporated, I think is the name of it, but if you just type CDFI fund, or CDFI Opportunity Zone map, it'll come up.
Yes, sir.
So if somebody wanted, is there a clearinghouse or a list or a website of funds that have been established for, like, if somebody has a property in a zone and they want to find people that have those funds already established, or how would that work? Or how would you find those funds as opposed to big money getting your stuff?
There's lots of websites that claim to be clearinghouses and lots of funds that claim to be the fund. The answer is no. There's not.
And going back to the challenges of the program, that matchmaking, that broker function is one of the underlying challenges. While there are some resources who are trying to do it, there is no universal one-stop shop that has all of that. Yes, ma'am.
I have a client with a 1031 exchange, and he's looking at investing in a property that I have, and it's in an opportunity zone. It's a bed and breakfast. Can you transfer that over to an opportunity zone fund, or are they completely separate?
Mind if I take that one?
Go ahead.
The answer is you can, and there's a very technical reason why you can, and it's based on very much the facts, which we probably don't have time to get into, but depending on the timing of the 1031, yes, you could end up doing a transfer from a 1031. What happens is you basically have to trigger the gain, and then once you have the gain, you can set up your own fund. That's one of the other problems is people don't realize you have to have a fund. You can't just, an Eric Smith can't go invest in an opportunity zone fund or a business myself. I have to have a fund. I either have to invest in Dan's fund or I have to set my own fund up. So the technical answer is yes, but there's a lot of steps to get there.
So you could potentially possibly have a professional like yourself roll it over from the 1031 into that without paying capital gains?
Yes, if it's the right fit.
Okay.
All right, quick signal check.
Nathan, he is unmuted on our side, but
All right, any other questions? Yes, sir.
So the opportunity zones are nominated by the governor and then approved by the treasury, correct?
Mhm.
What is the process to change those?
There is no process. It doesn't exist.
I'm a politician.
Calling your congressmen and senators and asking them to contemplate a bill that would do that.
Basically Congress
It would have to be an act of Congress signed into law.
There was no amending by the governor, approved by the president? Okay.
Nope.
I mean, the state can come up with their own process to do it at the state level, but Missouri's tax system is based on the federal, so it would really take the federal system.
Yeah, and that would take a statute to decouple it from federal as well. Yes, ma'am, back there. Or, so the question was, how would you go about setting up your own opportunity zone fund? I guess
You've done it.
Yeah.
So I have completed one. It was a small apartment complex, and I'm doing a second as we talk. So one, you got to have some capital gains out there. Secondly, you got to identify the zones and where you'd want to put it. Most importantly, you need to start with what's your concept. What are you going to do there? And then, you know, it's going through a professional and making sure you take care of, there are requirements. And as Derek said, there are timelines of when you have to get it done and when you have to put the money in, and when you have to get the construction completed. And then there's also reporting, although not extensive, there are reporting requirements. And as we alluded to earlier, you don't want to miss them or foul it up. So it's, you know, which order those exactly go in is come up with the great deals and come up with the money, and everything else is working with professionals. So.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, just a second.
Oh, wow.
Is this a quick answer or a long answer?
I didn't catch all that. Can we come back to it after we hear from Nathan?
All right. Thank you, ma'am. All right, Nathan, the floor is yours, good sir.
All right. Wow. Well, that was fun. Sorry for the technical difficulties there, but I really do appreciate not only that y'all are putting on an event around the opportunity event, but also inviting myself here to talk a little bit about RPR commercial and, you know, some of the ways you can utilize RPR to not only research opportunities and opportunity zones, but also just general research overall for commercial clients. So what else I might do is just a quick kind of overview of RPR, because I know some of y'all in the room are probably not realtor members or even practicing in real estate. So just want to give a general overview, and then we'll kind of jump into the platform itself for a few kind of tips and tricks, I guess you'd say. So to start off with, I kind of just hinted at this, but RPR is known as Realtors Property Resource, and we are actually a subsidiary of the National Association of Realtors. So what that means is, in order for anyone to get access to RPR, you do have to be a full realtor member, and you know, there's no pay-as-you-go, there's no subscriptions or anything like that. We are actually part of the realtor benefit package. So once you become a realtor member, you get access to everything that RPR builds: residential, commercial, investment tools, etc. So, you know, we're really here to kind of consolidate information, put the most up-to-date data in the hands of realtor members, and help them close more deals and you know, impress their clients. So the gist of RPR is a property-centric database. So we do have a national public record feed. That's kind of what we tie all the information to. So we work with a company called Black Knight. They provide us with all those public records, which every realtor has access to in RPR. I believe it's about 40 million or so on the commercial side. And then we just bring in more information on top of that. So we have feeds from various listing providers. We have things like tenant records, and then of course the realtors themselves are able to add their knowledge about these properties for reporting and so forth. The other thing that we do, which is kind of what we're here today for, is relying upon our community partnerships. So we also, of course, have to bring in information about the areas that surround these buildings. So we work with a company called Esri, which, if you're familiar with Site to Do Business, Esri to Power has built that platform as well. So the same economic, demographic, tapestry segmentation that you see in Site to Do Business is, for the most part, available within RPR. We do use it a little differently. But then we bring in partnerships like Calibrate for nationwide traffic counts. SMR brings us tenant records. 3DL brings us some more economic and demographic facts and figures. But, you know, with this, you know, we have all the information about the properties and also the communities that surround them, so you can really put together a quality report for your clients, and we'll walk you through a deal. One thing that we've been working a lot on is supplementing some of the national listings. Up until this year, we've been relying heavily upon MLSs and CIEs owned by associations. However, now, through some NAR partnerships, we've expanded that to two main companies. This first one is Brevitas. So we've had Brevitas on the site now for a couple of months. I believe they have about 40,000 listings coming in nationwide, so every one of which is available to all Realtor members. This one actually had an email this morning that this is now live. So if you've heard of Crexy.com, all of their listings are now within RPR for all Realtors to see as well, which is breaking news. So we're excited to announce that and start promoting that soon here as well. We also have some workflow tools, and we'll maybe touch on some of these here in a bit, but we have site selection tools where you can plug in specific attributes and see where those people may live. We also have retail gap analysis tools, so you can see what the competition is for specific retail sectors. Investment analysis tools to run your typical 2 to 10 year long-term hold period analysis, as well as back of the envelope land development calculators. And then a couple other things really quickly before we jump into the fun stuff. Obviously, we have a mobile application, no charge to download that. Has basically everything that the desktop has, minus a couple of tools. One thing that I've been pushing a lot for is rebranding of our world. So, we always try to put the brokers and the agents first. So you do have the ability, if you are a Realtor member, to rebrand our entire website, all of your PDFs and so forth with your logos, which I always highly encourage folks to do. And if there are some Realtors out there that are interested in learning a little bit more about RPR commercials, tons of training available from 1-hour demand classes on our website to, shooting me an email, just nathang@narrpr.com, and I'd love to maybe set up an office webinar for your agent. All right, so let's get into kind of what we're here to do today, and I'll pull up the RPR site. So you can see here, this is RPR commercial, and a couple of things that I just wanted to kind of run through for y'all. Obviously, just showing you how to access the overlay or the opportunity zones here on our overlay maps is kind of what we want to start, and then I'll kind of work in some different research ideas that I've had. So we're going to go to the search, and as long as you have this all property search selected, you will pull up everything in the system. So that is properties that are for sale, for lease, also properties that are off market. So we're just going to start there, and we'll do a county-wide search here. And you can see there are different segments if you want to kind of narrow that down, but right here off the bat, we have in our area. And you can see there's over 30,000 properties that have populated. And again, this is things that are both for sale, and then of course we have some off-market properties in here as well, things that are for lease, et cetera, et cetera. But to get to the opportunity zone layer, all you have to do is come over here to the bigger map, and then under show geographies, you can see there's a whole bunch of these standard geography boundaries that you can lay on there, and then up here at the top, opportunity zones. We can just flip that on really quickly, and all of these kind of areas in the peach color, and we can zoom in a little bit, these are going to be the defined opportunity zone map layers. So there's a couple of things we can do at this point in time. We could select all of the opportunity zones that are showing up on the map, and maybe we're looking for a property that is available maybe for sale or something for off market, and we can just search these specific 10 geographies now. So we can set that up, and now what we have done with this system is just focus in on the properties that are within the opportunity zone. The other thing we can do is go ahead and save this. So if we save this search, now anytime we go to the RPR site, we can click on save search results, and you can just go ahead and do that 10-track opportunity zone search for that area. So now down here you can kind of see how this works. We can see all of the different properties that are within these areas. And from that 30,000, we're down to 4,695. And what we can do now is start to filter these things down. So if we were just looking for, maybe some industrial space in these opportunity zones, we click on apply. And now you can see we're down to 542. And then it's just like doing any other kind of search. If you see one that looks like it might fit some of the benchmarking criteria needed as far as renovations and so on and so forth, in addition to the hold period, you can click on those properties. You can dive into the listing detail page, which again brings together both the on-market information data sets with all of our public record information here as well. So price change history, structural details, zoning, legal descriptions, tax information, deed records, and so forth. So great way to kind of just research those properties, find things that are on market. Now, if this was a property that we were looking at for, an opportunity zone, potentially, we could come in here and run this property analysis for investors. Now we can, sit down with our client, we can walk through some general assumptions such as what the, revenues might be, the expenses might be, annual growth rate, and basically what this system will allow you to do is then kind of, once you plug in these basic factors, walk through the entire whole from, disposition, what the sales cap rate might be at the end of this, to the various renovations that you have to do and scheduling those out, on a monthly basis, or, if you have to do TI improvements, all that kind of stuff can be scheduled through here. Your purchase and sales details, and of course, the loan details here as well. So it's a really great way to kind of identify those properties that are in those opportunity zones listed for sale, and then coming in here, run the investment analysis, and just making sure that, based on your assumptions, that this looks like a deal that makes sense, kind of like the presenters there we're talking about. So that's kind of the first step that I want to show you. The other thing I wanted to show you, though, let me make this map a little smaller. So because RPR has all of these on-market properties and off-market properties, the other neat thing you can do is look for, I guess you could call it almost doing farming. So if you wanted to look for clients that maybe you can reach out to see if they want to list, enlightening them that they own a property that's in a opportunity zone is probably not the worst thing in the world. So let's say that we wanted to maybe try to find somebody that's held on to a multifamily property for a good bit of time. Let's say that we're going to go back to 2010 here. We can plug in. So basically what I'm telling the system right now is, hey, I want to look for any property that has not sold since, January 2010 through December of 2010, specifically multifamily. So then we click on that apply button, and now you have 11 properties that popped up. So, now we can jump into some of these details here, clicking in, see what the property type was. We can, obviously see this is all public record details. There's the multifamily outlay. We can kind of see who the tenants are. We can see who the owners are down to the LLC level. Again, just the basic public record facts to kind of understand how that works. And then the next thing we can do is, let's assume that, we've reached out to these owners that are interested in listing with us. It's not just that this property is an opportunity zone that is going to sell it. That's a great factor. That's definitely something you want to market. But you also need to understand, everything else about this area, what makes it attractive, has there been population growth, et cetera, et cetera. So, we, of course, with all that Esri data, we can come in here and click on this bigger map. I'll zoom out just a little bit. But dropping let's just use a distance now. Let's say that we want to do the typical, 135 mile distance. Click on the apply, and this is how we are able to then go through and see all of the economics and demographics surrounding this property. So we click on run report, and in light of time, I went ahead and ran this. So you can see what this looks like. It's probably pretty familiar for most of y'all if you work in the commercial space. You can also do this as a drive time. So I know a lot of people are actually transitioning from the 1, 3, and 5 miles into the drive time tool. But this will have all of that Esri tapestry segmentation information plugged in there. The in-depth descriptions about each of those segments. So it really does, when you're marketing these properties or even just researching them to purchase for an investor, it really does enlighten us to who's living there, what you might be able to do to make it more attractive to those folks. And then it dives into kind of, I guess you would say, almost your more typical economic and demographic data sets. So there's our total population data sets for the 1, 3, and the 5. And if you're doing the, 3, 5, or 10-minute drive time, the same kind of setup would be here as well. Population change, so it does look like an area that's kind of starting to grow a little bit. So that might be a key factor we want to pull out. Household size, living index, median age. You got a lot of younger folks here, so, maybe, one of the things that people talk a lot about is how when people get out of college, they have a lot of student loan debt. You can actually look for areas in RPR based on figures like student loan debt and identify where those folks might be living. But Just a lot of great information can delve out of this economic and demographic report, income levels, unemployment rate, employment count, education levels, commute times, home valuations. There's that retail gap analysis based on that 5-mile distance that we had set up. And then, of course, it's a little much here, but when you're running a property report, it makes a lot more sense. You can see all of the traffic counts around that in this area to kind of get an idea for how that works out. And so, my goal today was just to kind of give you a couple quick tips. The last thing that I will point out, just because, we do work on, both commercial and residential, it is available on the residential side. I actually read a really interesting article from Zillow not too long ago, and they were talking about the impact of opportunity zones on the single-family homes that are in that marketplace. So just want to make sure that you're aware, you can pull up the same way that we looked for the opportunity zones in the commercial side. You can actually see on the residential side. So I'm just going to pull up this property really quickly to show you what it looks like. Go into the bigger map. And then again, you can identify the opportunity zones over here as well and see whether or not these buildings are in there. It may or may not have a big impact right now, but in my mind, as more money flows into these areas, logic would tell me that as things become, refurbished on the commercial side, you should start to see, kind of that following effect where the housing prices start to increase and so forth. The other thing that you can do is run what's called a market activity report on the residential side. So if you are maybe an EDC and you want to kind of follow some of the housing prices increases and decreases possibly in these opportunity zones, you can ask your realtors to run these reports for you. We love working with the local EDCs and politicians in general, providing as much information as possible. But you can see the estimated home values. You can see things like changes in value, distressed property counts, and so on and so forth. So those are kind of my, I guess you could say, top 3 tips as far as utilizing the opportunity zones in congruence with a lot of the other research tools within RPR in general. So with that, I know it took me a little bit to get connected with y'all. So again, thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time. I'm always happy to work with any realtor, any realtor office that has interest, and we can definitely continue this training as well.
Our panelists are around. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer a couple more questions. But thank you to our panelists. Thank you to you guys. And please join me in thanking Derek, Dan, and Nathan for their time.
Nathan, while you can still hear us, for those people who've never signed on to RPR, how do they sign in to their realtor account?
That's a great question, So all you have to do, I'll just sign out really quickly. If you just go to narrpr.com, you'll see this little signing screen here. Click on create a new account. And really, the key is to just make sure you have your NERS ID, which is the number that NAR gives you in order to identify yourself as a realtor. And then basically what you want to do is as you walk through the sign-in process, you create your password. The last key step is if you are a member of an MLS or a commercial information exchange, apply that login information as well, and that's how we tie that to. But even if you're not a member of an MLS or a CIE, you get access to all of that ESRI economic demographic data across the country. You get access to all of that public record information across the country. Any of our national feeds like Prexy and Brevitas are going to be in there as well. So it's a really powerful tool, and I do appreciate y'all giving me a little bit of time to show it off.
Mobile app? Mobile app?
He mentioned the mobile app. Yep. Great. So,
Take the time. I'd love to.